Brother,
Karl.
Michael, welcome to the lounge, my man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate that you've created the time to come sit and chat with me. And I'm super intrigued about your story because I know some bits of your story already, and I feel that there's a sense of similarity within our stories.
Mm-hmm.
But for those of you out there who don't know Michael Guirgis, teacher, healer, Bachelor of Health Science, yes?
Yep.
And one more thing, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Lord of the Kebabs. Lord of the Kebabs at gmail.com. Yes.
We said we're going to keep that on the go, right?
Did we? I don't remember that part of the conversation. People come in here all the time, and it's like, what's your name? What's your number? What's your email address? And sometimes they've got one of those old email addresses from when they were a kid. Lord of the Kebabs, though, that speaks to me. And where I want to go with that is I want to dive a little bit into your heritage, my friend, to kick things off today, so that people have a good base understanding of who you are. Talk to me about your heritage, brother.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Blacktown in Sydney.
Yeah.
From Egyptian. My father's Egyptian and my she's Lebanese.
Mm-hmm.
But from Egypt, we come from a minority group called the Coptics. Yeah,
Okay.
and the Coptic people, there's probably around like 5% or even less of Copts left.
You're right.
And the Copts are the indigenous, I would say, wisdom keepers that have inherited most of their rituals, their theology, their dogmas, pretty much their way of life from the ancient Egyptians. So we've pretty much preserved that tradition, and then now it's come to this point where it's actually been hidden inside of esoteric Christianity. So in order to find this tradition, you'd have to go to a Coptic church, and you're going to find the flavors of the ancient Egyptian technologies, but hidden inside of esoteric Christianity. So,
Wow.
yeah, Coptic Christianity is a hybrid of those two paths. So that's pretty much, I spent most of my youth, most of my young days inside of that community, surrounded by the elders, surrounded by that community, surrounded by the prayers. A lot of the readings actually come from the books of the dead. So a lot of our songs, even during Passion Week, so the week before Easter, like there's a lot of like prayers that come from the books of the dead, the mummification prayers.
Okay.
All of that's still been preserved. So
Yeah. Wow.
I grew up pretty much surrounded by a lot of that throughout
Okay.
my life. Yeah.
So that is some ancient, sacred, cultural and spiritual flavor in there, brother. I love that you specifically. I feel that you're carrying that tradition on, so talk to me about your parents. How did they end up in Australia?
Yeah, so my father came here, I guess he was looking for a brand new life.
Yep.
Life in Egypt, in particular for the Coptics, because they're the minority. They've been persecuted
Interesting.
for a very long time.
Okay.
So there's a lot of that. So they're the minority group. So to make it forward in life is quite challenging for Coptic people, being the minority. And then just life in Egypt is just challenging, period, for anyone living there, whether you're Coptic, whether you're from any background. Life living in Egypt is quite challenging. So my father flew here, I believe back in the 60s, looking for a new life.
Do you think that part of that challenge is geography? Do you think the way of life over there is is geographically challenging?
Oh yeah, because there's so many different influences in that part of the world. There's so many different influences, but I think one of the main thing is that you've got like over 60 million people living in such a small area, and so it's like everyone's just stepping on each other's toes. There's they're like there's no more like there's no more, it's inhumane the way they're living there.
Okay, so does that would, for me then, my interpretation of that would be that there's quite a bit of poverty. There's that maybe even leaning towards a bit of that third world type.
It's got that feel
experience.
To it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
okay.
It's got that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's got that feel to it. Yeah,
right.
So coming to Australia back then, when the doors were wide open, it's like, okay, come.
Yeah.
It was like that was a ticket out for my father.
Okay.
To come to, in his eyes, was the promised land.
Yeah. And he was married at that time?
And no, so my
Met your mum here?
my mum left Lebanon when she was 9.
Okay.
But her family escaped from the war.
Oh, so refugee?
Yeah. So
wow.
So they were looking for
what
refuge.
a blend.
Yeah. So they were looking for refuge. So my mum left when she was quite young.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, if you speak to my mum, you'd think that she was like born here and she's just got the language. She just. Whereas my father...
Aussie as, mate.
Yeah, whereas my father... When my friends used to call up at home, they'd be like... They'd speak to me, they'd be like, oh, do you have a sister at home? We didn't realise you had a sister, you know, and she's speaking to my mum.
Okay.
She's just got that. Yeah, she's just got that. She's got that. Whereas my father, he's got the accent.
Yeah,
you can tell he's like...
Yeah, okay.
But they...
So mum was mean streets of Blacktown too then?
What's that?
Was mum on the mean streets of Blacktown too? Is that where
I
she
think
gets
that's
her?
where
Is that where she gets her Aussiness from? Her
I
Western
think
Sydney
she
influence?
landed in Blacktown.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, she landed in Blacktown. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where they met actually. So yeah, my father met my mum in Blacktown, and then they got married in a church, the first Coptic church in Sydney, which is in Mount Druitt.
Wow.
And then they had their honeymoon at McDonald's. So it's really like they were really
Which one? St Mary's or Penrith?
I don't even know. Jeez.
Oh, bro.
Yeah. So,
okay. Cool. All right. That start to feel like I get a good base understanding of some things in there. And so then let's come to you, bro. Like, what was then life like for you as an Egyptian / Lebanese Coptic boy growing up on the streets of Blacktown? You know, I feel like Blacktown's a fairly cultural kind of area itself as it is. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I actually had a really good childhood in Blacktown. I had a very good childhood.
Sweet.
I had a very.
You must have to rise to the title of Lord of the Kebabs. The boys and girls put you up there on the pedestal. Yeah, nah, he is the man. He is the man.
You got John Smith 108 next. You got this. Okay, Lord of the Kebabs. All right, bring him on.
Yeah, okay.
No, I had a pretty good. I had a positive experience. Yeah, I had a positive experience growing up in Australia. So. Yeah. I was very sheltered. I was among my community members, but also going to like public schools and interacting with the community at large. So my experience personally, I had a very good upbringing and a very good experience growing up in Australia. So, yeah.
I feel though from side chats that we've sort of had that like did you have a bit of a bad boy streak in you through your teens?
I wouldn't say in like the traditional sense where, all right, bad boy, I was up to like...
you weren't jacking cars and shit.
No, there was nothing, exactly, yeah, there was nothing malicious, but I always, inside of me, I always had the rebel. Mm-hmm. I always had that bit of that rebellious spirit in me, you know, I was like, rebelling in school, rebelling, you know, like asking questions at church among the elders, really poking the teachers.
Ooh, yeah, interesting. The elders at church. Yeah, how did that go down?
Yeah, like I mean, it was always in good faith.
Yeah, of course.
I was always inquisitive, and
yes,
I always had that spirit of inquisition, and but I was always the rebel. Always had the rebel. So I was mischievous. I had a lot of energy, but I wasn't bad. Like in terms of there was nothing malicious. There was no bad luck.
Okay. Do you think that sense within you? Do you think that sort of came from your dad, perhaps? I mean, could kind of you could say
for
for someone to go, I've grown up here all my life, but fuck this, I'm out of here. Like there's a bit of rebel in that, you know.
Yeah,
like a lot of
sure.
people might not like it, but they stay, and it burns them. But
sure.
yeah.
I wonder if actually the pressure that my father had on me actually, how do you say, like rebounded.
Okay. So he was quite an intense man.
Very intense.
Okay.
And they say I'm very much like my father too. Like very, I would say I could say I have a hint of stubbornness.
Okay.
A hint of like very driven and like my father's like like so
tenacious.
Tenacious.
Yeah.
So he went to the army in Egypt.
Fuck.
So I was raised literally, so he went to the Egyptian army in Egypt. So can you imagine as a young boy being raised with that level of intensity?
That sounds pretty staunch. I don't know anything about it, but it sounds pretty staunch.
Plus I'm like my father, and then I've got this hint of rebellion, so it actually kind of backfired. Eventually kind of backfired, and then now.
Okay.
But I think that pressure was important.
Okay.
And we can touch on that as well.
Yeah. We definitely will.
Yeah.
See, knowing you as a teacher, I see the qualities that might have been instilled in you from that experience, giving you the ability to direct a class of people in the ways that you do. Because I think that you are an exceptional teacher. In this environment, and let's touch back on that. Let's touch back on that a little bit later. So grew up in Blacktown, nice childhood, cultural mix of parents, cultural mix of the community in which you lived.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing how that then made your childhood a nice experience. And so we mentioned that obviously you're a yoga teacher, and we mentioned your Bachelor of Health Science. Mm-hmm. What came first?
First was the Bachelor
of Health Science.
Yeah,
cool. What drove you to Bachelor of Health Science?
I would say ultimately was societal pressures and the expectations of my family.
Okay.
Yeah. I went to a Coptic school actually as well, from year 8 to year 12. I went to a Coptic school. There's a couple now, but the one that I was going to was in Wattle Grove.
Okay.
And our my parents were very we've come to Australia, we want you to have a good education.
Yes.
So they were very sending me to tutoring.
Yep.
School was very important, like getting an
intellect.
education. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, thank you very much. But when year 12 came, and when it came time to decide what it is that I wanted to do, like for example, year 10, we had the opportunity to go on work experience exchange.
Yep.
And my friends were going to pharmacies, they were going to law firms, they were going to business this, business that.
Yep.
My mum organised for me to go to Parks, which is next to Orange.
Yeah, I know Parks.
And I spent a whole week with at the Parks Observatory.
Oh, no shit.
With the astronomers there.
Oh, fuck,
They
dude.
set me up. They put me in put me in the astronomers dormitory.
Wow.
So it's pretty much cruising with the astronomers.
Oh, dude, that would be fucking cool.
For about a week, yeah.
Did you enjoyed that?
I did. It was kind of like a retreat. I thought, because it's a radio telescope, I didn't realize that. I thought I was we're going to be looking at Mars. I'm the guy's come, we're going to track Mars tonight. Come, here's the bike.
Okay.
The dorm was a kilometer away from the actual observatory.
Yep.
So come, take your bike, ride, meet us at night. So I'm on my bike, midnight, I can't even see the snakes. I'm right on my bike in the middle of the night. I get to the observatory and they're just looking at this.
At a computer screen.
Come on. You said we're going to check Mars, man. It's I want to see some Mars. I want to see Andromeda Galaxy. So I was kind of a bit
I've been to Parks I don't recall whether I've actually seen The Dish or not, but I
Okay.
do know that I saw it in the Australian movie The Dish.
That's right.
And they're
It is
like playing cricket in it
yeah,
and
yeah.
shit like
So
that.
that
Did
was-
you play cricket in The
Nah,
Dish?
so that was one of the cool things we
mate.
did. I did get to walk on
You
that
walked
dish.
in the dish.
Yeah, and then we walked up to the top, but that
Yeah, it's big, right?
It's massive.
It's fucking
It's massive.
huge.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And that was
So-
involved in the first ever launch to the moon. Yes,
Was it?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Australia's observatory was the backup station,
Oh, okay,
relaying backup information in case of catastrophic failure. And I think, look, I don't know how historically exactly correct The Dish is, but there's a bit in there where they
Okay, sure.
realise, holy shit, they're taking our whole stream and they fucked it up or something. Okay,
okay,
look,
yeah.
that's that. It's a comical movie at the end of the day. Okay, cool. All right, and so
Yeah, so I
intriguing, but you didn't get to look through the eye of a telescope and go, that's
No,
so a bit
I was
disappointing.
I was like, come on, what's this graph, man? I was like, I want to see. So,
Okay.
but it was a cool week. Like it was
Yeah,
fun.
right.
I got on a train. I got to cruise with them.
Yeah.
But like ultimately, and then year 12 came, and then when it came to decide what it is that I wanted to be doing for my career, one of my PE teachers, he could see the natural talent in my sporting abilities and my love for the human body.
Yes.
He's like, why don't you go do your Cert 3? Why don't you go do your Cert 4? Go down that path, and like
PT.
and he was working at Anytime Fitness.
Yep.
He was a manager there too, so he's like, listen, go get your training, and then there's a pathway here for you already. So I was like, boom, so I went and got my Cert 3. Actually, my parents, they made me go on Cert 3 because they didn't think I was even going to get to uni. Like, they thought this guy's like total. So they're like, all right, fine, just go do your Cert 3. Like, this guy's not going to, there's nothing that's going to come out of him
Okay.
in terms of intellectually. Yeah.
Do you feel that was a lack of interest in the topics taught at high school?
Oh no, the 5 subjects that I chose in year 12, I absolutely loved: business,
Okay.
PDHPE, senior science,
Yeah, right.
English, maths. I loved, and I aced them, and I did really well.
Oh, cool.
So at the end, like I was originally the underdog, and
Yeah.
then
Rose to the
oh,
top.
Actually,
Wow.
he did okay. Oos.
Fucking boom. Love it.
But now they're like, oh, he did okay.
Okay.
Go to university.
Now you got to go to university. Okay, cool. So you chose Bachelor of Health Science. So, so sporting was a thing for you. Were you a fighter?
Mostly during school, soccer. I was playing soccer.
soccer.
Mostly.
Okay, soccer, sorry,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was mainly playing soccer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet, bro. Okay. So where did yoga come from then? So you're heavily into sports. You've gone and got a Cert 3. You've gone and got a Cert 4. You've enrolled in a Bachelor of Health Science.
Yeah.
Firstly, what's the main, what's
Radiography.
Okay, so
So I
you...
was in the medical industry taking X-rays, CT scans.
Yep.
That was pretty much the last decade of my working life.
Yep.
I was working. That was my main form of
Okay.
income. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then how did yoga come along, brother?
So during that first 10 years, during my first year so I went to uni, I finished the course, and then boom, straight into the workforce. I was getting a train from Blacktown to North Strathfield every day, and I very quickly realized that was not the path that I wanted to be on. I think it was like within 3 months.
Yep.
All the hype of school, all the hype of university. Now I've made it. I've made it in life. Everything that I've been kind of pressured to do, I've made it. And then I'm on this train. I'm like, wait a second. No, this is like, I've been set up for this. Like, this is a setup, man. I remember I used to ask Eddie. Eddie was catch the train from Mount Druitt. He'd pick me up on Blacktown. I'm like, Eddie, wake me up when we get to Strathfield, man. That was the conversation with him every morning. I just knew that wasn't a trajectory I wanted to be on.
Okay.
So after a year of doing that, I went backpacking. I quit my job. I went backpacking. My first trip was Southeast Asia.
Yes.
That first trip, that opened my eyes to a whole another way of living. And since that
Southeast
time-
Asia.
Yeah, Southeast Asia.
So,
So
Vietnam.
Singapore, Thailand,
Yep.
Vietnam.
Yep.
I got to Vietnam. I realized I still had some money in the bank. Ended up Ended up flying to Mongolia. I did like horseback.
Fuck, dude.
I did horseback in Mongolia for about a week.
Yeah.
Still had some coin after that. Got a train from Mongolia to Beijing. I spent a month in China, and then flew back.
Yeah.
And that cycle kept happening over the last decade, where I'd go, be inspired, I'd come back, find myself doing what I didn't love doing. I'd go again, and then that cycle just kept repeating itself.
Okay. You've mentioned this to me, like the bad relationship. Your work life became a bad relationship that you couldn't get away from.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I'd go with this inspiration. I'd come back. I'm like, I'm here again, doing what doesn't actually set my soul on fire.
It's interesting that you talk about it like that, because my background is IT. I loved IT, but I would find myself every couple of years going, fuck this, and quit my job, and I went and worked as a brickies labourer for a year, and then went back to IT. Then I quit my job and I went and worked as a plumber for 6 months, and I went back to IT. I fucking left my job. I renovated a house for my dad, which took me about 12 months, and then I went back to IT, and this kept happening for me as well. And then, well, the last one was the last straw, because by that time I'd found yoga, I'd become certified, and fucking here we are now with the studio. But so yoga came to you through these experiences, these overseas experiences?
Exactly. So my 2014 trip to Brazil, I went to the Brazil World Cup.
Oh.
Again, I quit my job before. I was working at Westmead Private Hospital. It was a prestigious role. You could say I had everything in life.
Yeah, right.
Family was proud of me, everything, but
Yes.
I knew. Anyway, so that...
Empty, void. Yeah.
So that 2014 World Cup happened, Brazil World Cup. I've been playing soccer all my life.
Yes.
Australia made it, so I felt a sense of, okay, so our country's made it, so this is the chance, so I quit again, boom, off to South America.
Yes.
Off to Brazil, World Cup. I remember very distinctly, I'm just going to boil this story so we can get to the crux of it. I remember distinctly, I was in a game between Australia and Chile in the jungle, Manaus. Again, childhood dream. I was in the stadium, thousands, the whole world was watching. And I remember I was with my friends and, had our shirts off. But I remember in that moment feeling very, very empty and feeling very out of place.
Fuck.
And it was a scary feeling for me, because if you're not happy in a World Cup with 10,000 people, and
how can you be happy?
How are you gonna
Fuck, man, that hits me hard, eh?
That was I would say that was the scariest. Can you imagine the scariest moment in my life?
Yeah.
In a World Cup.
Yeah.
In the jungle, across the other side of the world. Yeah. That was the scariest time in my life.
Okay.
Feeling absolutely empty and void and disconnected. So from that, I realized that. So a sequence of events happened. I ended up being in Peru. I got sick in Brazil, ended up going to Peru. During that time, I was listening to podcasts around yoga, around spirituality, around plant-based medicine.
Yes.
Around breath work, just around these alternative forms of healing.
Yeah.
And I was very interested. But
what
also,
year is this?
This was 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. But that feels like quite a time now. I mean, you can chuck on any fucking podcast now and someone's going to be talking about plant medicine and breath work, but 2014,
it was still early.
Different then, bro.
Yeah, it was still early.
Yeah?
It was still very early. And
so how'd you get onto that? Like, what?
Because I was doing jiu-jitsu. I started doing jiu-jitsu.
I knew there was a fighting element to it.
I started doing jiu-jitsu around that time. And I was listening a lot to Joe Rogan podcasts.
Yeah, he's the man.
And he's very big on this.
Yes.
And his partner, Aubrey Marcus, who's, they run On It, a company, a health product called On It. I was really intrigued by the way he was speaking about yoga, about plant medicine, there was a sophisticated element to their speech.
Yes.
And I had the stigma of this stuff is just for hippies.
And a lot of people do.
These guys
I
are
hear you,
just
brother.
tree huggers. They just like
They want to grow their dreadlocks and sing
They-
Kumbaya, yeah?
sing kumbaya and just smoke weed all day. It's
Yeah.
like I didn't want to have any affiliation with that.
And so that understanding of yoga initially was something that kept you from it. But when you heard somebody Joe Rogan is a fucking big businessman.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And talks the science, man.
That's
Cool.
it.
And
That's
hooked
it.
ya.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. So I was listening to Graham Hancock, Terence McKenna, Aubrey Marcus, so a lot of big names who were speaking very intelligently about these altered states of consciousness, that yoga, that again plant medicine, that all. But in saying that, there was still a great deal of skepticism because you have to acknowledge that I come from a very sheltered, culturally, ideologically driven background.
Yes.
So I had that layer.
Yes.
I had my family layer.
Yes.
And on top of that, I had the medical layer on top of that.
Yes.
Like the mainstream.
Interesting. Man.
So I had all these levels of skepticism
Yeah, okay.
that were just weighing down on me. But
So what happened?
when you're in the middle of the jungle,
You got
and when you're at your lowest point in your life, I'm like, screw this. I'm just
Fuck
gonna
it.
go,
What do you got to lose?
I've got nothing to lose here. So and I even remember like having this conversation one day. Had an umbrella. I was coming home from training. I was in Brazil and it was raining heavy. And I remember walking back to where I was staying, and I remember having a conversation with God, and I'm like, listen, if you're really out there, just reveal yourself to me, because right now, all this talk of God, source, spirit, I just don't buy it anymore.
Yep.
That was my conversation.
Wow.
And then boom, my umbrella got knocked out by wind, and I was just walking through torrential rain.
Turned inside out.
All right. All right, let's see. All right, this is what's up. All right, I'm done with you.
Okay, so
then,
now we're at a really
oh, yeah.
pivotal point. We're at a really pivotal point, right?
Yeah.
We're at a really pivotal point, which we're about to find out how Michael got to his first fucking yoga class. But like what I think what we've just touched on is what a lot of people experience. Yeah, there's the in and out of where we fucking are in life. There's the void that starts to come up when you're not aligned, and people don't necessarily recognize that the void is the thing that's telling you that you're in the wrong fucking direction. Or maybe they do, but not everybody has the opportunity to wind up in the middle of a fucking jungle in fucking Brazil and have a talk with God and have an experience where you believe then that you're being told to do something different. So what would you say are 3 steps that somebody could do if they feel like they're on the wrong fucking path to start to actually believe that they're on the wrong path? What do they have to do?
What do they have to do to start taking the right steps forward?
What could they do?
Whoa.
Like, what's it come down to? Does it come down to getting in touch with one's self? Perhaps it's finding a meditation practice?
Jesus, really, it's a hard one to answer. Yeah, so I feel like that word tenacity really struck a lot of chords with me. Like when it comes to these feelings within myself, I've actually been very relentless when it comes to whatever it is that this voice is saying within me. I gotta go.
Yep.
There's a very strong sense of relentlessness, especially right now in this time and age.
Yep.
When that inner voice is telling me and guiding me.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this. Do you feel like you're a person that sits in the pain to then allow that voice to that tenacity to come up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so one tool then would be, and I would say particularly the last 3 months I've gone through this yet again, which is what's led me to here now and the decisions that I'm about and the journeys I'm about to embark on.
Yep.
But these last 3 months in particular, I have been quite reserved, and I have been alienating myself and really sitting in a lot of silence.
Sit in silence.
Sitting in a lot
Sit
of
in
silence.
silence. Which is simply what that's all meditation is. To sit in silence and to be with your own words until those words become powerful enough that you have to take action.
Exactly. So really sitting and listening, and then that voice has just become getting stronger.
And it won't fucking go away.
And stronger, and it's just relentless, and it's like,
yeah.
Boom.
A lot of people confuse meditation with the idea that we're trying to stop our thoughts. No.
Yeah.
Through meditation, you hear your thoughts so that you can understand where what the fucking actual problem is, and then take action.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then the action that you take reduces the thoughts. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then that's how, and then, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Brazil, it's pissing down, God's pissing on you and ripping your fucking umbrella out of your hands. Your words, not my kind of. Right?
Yeah.
So then what?
So now I'm in Peru.
Yep.
I'm out of that country. I'm in Peru.
Yep.
I'm learning Spanish. I'm at a school.
Fuck.
And I'm just like, okay, I want to explore a bit more. The spiritual marketplace. I wouldn't. Yeah.
I've never heard it described like that.
Yeah, the spiritual marketplace is on roids in Peru.
Yeah. Wow.
But I mean, you can find the
You can
marketplace.
find it here.
You can find it here. Yeah.
I've never even heard of that. So I fucking love that.
The spiritual marketplace, there's hotspots in like the Sacred Valley in Cusco, in Pisac. There's hotspots where the spiritual marketplace is on roids.
Yeah.
And you can find that here as well.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, how do you discern who is a true, authentic teacher or someone that's actually leading you to a path of truth and a path of righteousness and a path of self-realization? And so as a novice, it takes a lot of shifting through a lot of junk before you actually get to the gems that are hiding.
Okay.
So I spent a good month and a half I didn't want to be caught in the tourist trap. So I had a lot of time, I knew, because I didn't have a work to go. I had a bit of money saved up from, and then eventually I found, I saw a lot of yoga studios, and I still had my skepticism. But I went into a studio one night.
Okay.
I went to a studio. The lights were dark. There was a big picture of Ganesh in the background. Incense burning. The male teacher teaching the class had a strong energy. He taught the class in 3 languages: Spanish, English, and Sanskrit. It was a vinyasa, so it was strong in my body. I was struggling, I was breathless. End of the class, I'm in Shavasana.
I'm a semi-pro soccer player, you were struggling and breathless.
And martial arts, and like, this is hard, man. What's this? I thought like this stuff is for like, I didn't realize that.
Power yoga is a fucking thing, right?
It's a thing,
Fuck yeah.
And so for me, it was a breakthrough because soccer, you go play soccer and then you go to church on the weekend, or you do martial arts and then maybe you meditate here. And so there was a sense of fragmentedness between physical training and spirituality and nature. It was fragmented. But when I first stumbled across yoga, it was like, wait. You can have physical practice, spirituality, getting in touch with nature, all under the one roof. That for me was like, how you can do this?
Yeah.
What? It was like, what do you mean? No, you pray in the church. You don't pray. You pray in the temple. You pray in the ashram. You pray in the mosque. Why you can do this with this? How you can do this with the self?
Yeah, far.
So that was like, no, here you go. You can do all this, all in one. My body's the temple. I can awaken the God within myself,
Yes.
And the ancient and the Coptic culture was saying that, but they never really. I think I got more clarity around it through yoga and through my time and through the plant medicine. I got more clarity that they were actually saying the same thing that my people were saying.
Yes.
And it's like, what? And then the Peruvians are saying the same thing, and all ancient cultures, like, so all these doors start, I was like, well, we're all saying the same thing, that the body is the temple, and that you don't want somebody to come and erect the body is the temple, and our role is to awaken that God or that spirit or source or creator. And one of the fundamental sayings of yoga, the Mahavakya, that says that aham brahmasmi or tadvam asmi, which is aham, I am, and brahmasmi, Brahma, aham Brahma,
Brahma.
I am Brahma.
I am Brahma.
I am
Yeah.
the Lord creator of the universe.
Yeah.
I have one and the same essence with that.
Yeah.
And it's like, geez, this is what the elders in my community were saying from a
Yes.
very young age. And so I kind of threw God away in some sense, and then he came back to me. Spirit came back to me in such a grand and such a more marvelous and such a more open-hearted way.
Yes.
And so that was my turning point from yoga, and since then
love
I've
that,
kind
bro.
of just been on that journey.
I love that, and that's such beautiful testament as to how yoga is not a religion, but yoga supports religion. Yoga
Yeah.
talks of the Atman and the Brahman and Ishvara and and God and chanting and things like that. But it is to awaken the spirit that was within, and once that spirit within is awake, it's supportive of whatever religion, if you choose to follow religion.
Exactly.
That's
it.
So there's two strains of beliefs, dualism and non-dualism, which we talk
Okay.
of in the practice
Yeah,
of yoga.
yeah.
And non-dualism being that we are a drop from the same ocean of spirit, of universal consciousness, of God, of Atman, of Allah, whatever you want to call it, and therefore never separate from. Yeah. And when you can realize that, then fucking life opens up, and it's like that. That realization for me helped me take my victim mentality and fucking throw it in the bin. What's life doing to me? No. Acceptance and ownership that I am a drop from the same ocean of that, and therefore am that, made me go, okay, nothing's happening to me, it's happening for me. This is the information flowing through the universe to then how do I convert this situation or environment that I'm interpreting as a problem into a positive.
Yep. Yep. And I really appreciate what you said about it's a real. That's why in yoga we're stressing that it's a process of self-realization.
Yep.
You're simply realizing that which you already are.
Yes. Fuck yes.
You're realizing that what you already are. I love that word of realization, self-realization. Realize what you are. And in the societies, the way that it's constructed is that we've been boiled down to think that all we are is our jobs, all we are is our nationalities, all we are is our religions, all we are is our age, all we are is how much money we have in our bank. When someone says, tell me about yourself, you say, well, I am a radiographer, or I am Egyptian, or I am 35, but that's not what I am. We've identified with what we do,
Yes.
rather than with what we actually are.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so important to be impeccable with our words. Because what you are is different to what you do. And when you realize the I am of who you are, that's when the magic starts to unfold.
Fuck yeah, brother.
Yeah.
I love where this conversation has gone. I love where this conversation has gone. So, you hit your first yoga class with a male teacher in Peru and went, holy fuck, something special is happening here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
what? Then where?
And then during that time, so yoga and my experience of plant-based medicine, and I don't know how much we want to get into that, but
As much as you want,
if
brother.
you're happy for me to touch on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so yoga and plant medicine or shamanism both came to me at the same time in my life. And so ever since that time, I haven't known them outside of each other.
Right.
I've known the embodiment and the philosophy of yoga and then the shamanic experience. And there's been a sacred marriage between the two. So during that time, I was looking for shamans. I wanted to do the plant medicine work. And long story short, I had, I would say, the most profound, life-changing, most awakening, enlightening experiences out in the Sacred Valley, drinking medicine under the moonlight with the shamans. I really got to touch the heart of self, or the essence of the teachings. And actually it's a place beyond words. It's like you can read about it as much as you want, but the shamanic experience really gave me a feel of that, and the yogic tradition gave me the words to describe that feeling.
I love it.
And so for me, it was very easy to portray my experiences using these magical spells, the mantras, to convey that message.
Yeah, and essentially Sanskrit is a very simple language, and that's why it's so profound and powerful, because it is simple. There's not 15 different words for the one thing. There's a word.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no. Yeah. Okay. And so now a question for you, because I'm sure there's people out there that are interested in that, and I myself have dabbled into the plant medicine region of late, and that has been psilocybin for me. I've had a really profound experience, my very first one, and my second one I'm still trying to interpret that and fully understand what it is. I've engaged in these with ceremony, but not necessarily with a shaman. Do you feel like that pivots things and changes things? Firstly, so because you've obviously spoken about your experience with a shaman, have you done these things without a shaman?
Okay, sure. I would say for me, my journey into plant medicine always started shamanic.
Okay.
It was always started off in ceremony.
Yep.
It always started off with the intention of healing, the intention of self-realization.
Same. Yes.
The intention of the space that you create when you're going through these transpersonal experiences, candles, the mood, the music. Maybe you're in nature, maybe you're indoors, but you're changing. The fasting, the preparation. There's a dieta that goes on before you go into. There's a very strict fasting lead up where you purify the body so that your antenna can be more perceptive to touching into those states of consciousness.
Yep.
So I guess the advantage of having like a designated, say, pilot is that you can more go into that passenger mode. Because if you really want to go deep, the shaman holds the space. Yeah. That's actually the essential role of the shaman, is to hold the space so that you can go into that space and then come back, and then you feel safe, you feel supported. Yes. The shaman sings the Icaros, the medicine songs, because sometimes you can go through it can be challenging medicine work, because you're going into the depths of your pain, the depths of your trauma. You're reliving, you might be reliving a lot of that. So to have someone who's been working with the medicine 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that's come through a lineage, that's come through the spirit of sacrament, through the spirit of healing, it just gives it that little bit of a punch, or that little bit of I feel supported, someone's going to carry me through this experience. But in saying that, however, since coming back to Australia, I still have been journeying. There hasn't really been any, there are people doing this work here. It's underground work. Yep. So it's harder to come into contact with, but you can still do that work on your own. Yep. Absolutely, you can still do that work on your own in ceremony. Why not? It can still be done alone.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And so let's steer from that and let's dive more into your journey of yoga. So yes, those things have come to you sort of together. Yeah, there's a togetherness around them, and I fully understand the reasons for that. And so obviously your yoga that first class was powerful for you, and you then, I mean, how long was it before you became a teacher?
So I became a teacher in 2018.
Yep. So we're talking how many years then? Sorry.
That's, what are we now, 5 years ago? So it's been almost 5 years.
No, but since you found your first class.
Oh, so probably about 4 years.
Yeah, cool.
3 to 4 years.
And so you built up a regular practice?
I built up a regular practice. I was living in Adelaide, so when I came back to Australia... Adelaide. I went back to... I was living in Adelaide, and I went to a number of yoga studios until I found a studio that resonated with...
Yeah, cool.
So that was Power Living in Adelaide. I really loved
Triton and Tessa.
Yeah,
Triton and Tessa.
Yeah,
shout out to you, Triton and Tessa.
Yeah.
Triton and Tessa were on my teacher training, brother. I met them. I met them in Bali, so they weren't part of the Sydney group.
Okay, yeah.
But when we got to Bali, they brought together Melbourne, Sydney, and New Zealand,
exactly,
and I know Triton and Tessa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, hey guys out there. Mad. So you landed in Power Living, Adelaide in 2015.
Around 2015.
What must have been 20. So our certification was August 2015.
Oh, okay, sure. So
yeah, so maybe I don't know whether they had it running before they were certified themselves or not. Yeah, dude. So we're cool.
So I really, I resonated with their style of yoga.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of fluff that's out there, and it's very hard to find, again, in that spiritual marketplace, to find something that's real. So I found it was real. I found it was concrete. I like this song that they brought modern science. So their thing was modern yogis.
Absolutely.
Talking about how to incorporate ancient teachings into a modern day world. So I really love how they bridge that.
And just while we're doing shout out Duncan Peake.
Shout out Duncan.
Father of Power Living. Like this is his mish. This is his mission, man. To provide modernized practices, which is what we do here at One Big Heart. You know, both of us from the Power Living training background, and cool. So carry on. Yeah, so you found that, and
I found that, and then that was that place for me was, especially after having my experiences in South America and then coming back, and then still having to work in a hospital and deal with the insights and the realizations I've had, and then coming back to that world.
Okay. So you've had this realization in Brazil that you are void and fucking empty, even though you should be at the most happiest of your life. So something's fucking amiss. And then did you know that this is my job that's doing this, or no? At that stage,
I knew that my work was contributing to that, but that void in Peru was something. In Brazil was like.
Yeah, right. And so then you've come back, you've found the regular practice, and so now you're getting this mixture of physical and spiritual awakening through the practice of yoga, and also sitting in underneath the blanket that is of the medical industry that is sheltering you from having the experiences in life that you want because of the lack of joy that you felt inside of you. Okay.
That time in Adelaide with Power Living, Power Living for me, yoga for me, that was a refuge for me, honestly. That was that community, that just being able to come into those spaces in a city. That was like an oasis in the middle of a desert.
Fuck yes.
That was it was a spiritual oasis for me.
I love that.
That was a lifeline.
Yeah.
For me.
And that's what people say when they walk through the doors here. It's like, and you can see it. You're sitting at the front desk and you got the wind. You would notice this. You look outside and you see someone walk past the window, and their face is like very definitely holding stress. But then by the time they come through the doors and present to you in front, their face has totally changed within 3 or 4 meters because of the vibrational, you say it however you want, the vibrational energy that the space holds, or it's like the walking through the door, it allows us to switch modes inside.
It's literally like a portal in here. You step in here, you're in a new portal.
Yes.
You just,
because there's this knowing that inside a yoga studio, profound things happen, shit is let go of, there's joy, there's tears, there's all the stuff, right?
Yep.
And so as soon as your brain switches mode when you walk through the fucking doors.
Exactly.
It's not,
exactly.
it's got, it's, you know, this is just a fucking concrete box like the noodle place next door and like you know, and so essentially, is there anything spiritual about here? No, it's just a concrete box, but it's the spiritualism of your mind that fucking switches when you walk through the doors.
Yep. Totally.
So you got that. How many times a week were you practicing?
I would say about 3 to 4 times a week.
Bang,
Plus
that's where the
doing,
magic
like,
happens.
Still
doing jiu-jitsu?
Still doing jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
And I found it.
Still soccer?
No, I wasn't playing soccer at that time.
Okay.
Still jiu-jitsu, and then still, and then I was weight training as well. I was weight training as well. And it was interesting how my interest for sport had transformed over the years from team sports to then jiu-jitsu, which is more of, it's still individual, but there's that level of interaction.
Yeah, there's a dojo.
There's a dojo. I have to roll with you.
Yes.
And then another step now, okay, we're all in the room, but now we're by ourselves.
Yeah.
I really enjoy
cool.
how that's transformed. And that's where I'm at in my path right now. I don't feel that I need to be part of it. Like, for me, I'd rather just do work my temple, but be with myself during that process. So it's interesting how that's transformed for me.
So what's the biggest thing that's come to you from the practice of yoga? Is it that body is a temple, that is it that, or?
It's the feeling it's just the feeling, like you do the practice and then it's like just straight away it pulls you back in. I'm in again.
What is that? Okay. So describe that in a bit more depth. Pulls you back in, like what?
It's the place
is
of.
it?
It's just the place of. It's just the place of. It's a place.
Is
of
it stillness?
Stillness. It's a place of calm. It's a place of. It's just a place of. I feel comfortable. I feel at home.
Everything's fucking okay.
I'm just okay. Like, I'm in myself, and you're just there. You know.
Yeah.
You're just there.
Absolutely.
Like,
that's why that's why I'm here too. You know, people know my story: depression, anxiety, drugs, and alcohol. You know, one day I was like, well, I was trying to put my finger on, well, what does a yoga practice do for me? And it wasn't until I'd for whatever fucking reason, I'd slumped into some deep sort of depression, and I was like, I fucking got to get to class. I came to class. I'm driving home, and I'm like, oh, okay. Now describe the feeling. What is this? This feeling is joy, ease, and fucking genuine gratitude, just to fucking be here, just to be alive.
Yep.
And know that nothing's too hard and everything's achievable and doable.
Totally.
And it's not life is not a drain on my fucking energetic spectrum when I'm fucking looking after myself.
Totally. And even that place, you could say it is even the place beyond words, because the feeling of it, like when someone's like, how do you feel at the end of it? It's like, you're just calm. Let's talk after Shavasana.
Yeah.
Then we'll talk.
Totally, yes.
It's like, I can see he's saying a million things to you. Like, what's this mango taste like? You have to taste the mango.
Yeah, you're right.
You have to taste the mango.
You can't fucking.
It's like.
You can't describe what the mango tastes like, can you?
You have to taste it, bro.
I love that, bro.
You have to taste the mango.
Taste the mango.
Come and taste the practice.
Yeah, right.
Then it's like, okay, then so
for people who are intrigued by a practice, then what are three things that they should do? What's their next steps like to come and taste the mango? How easy can it fucking be?
Well, get to a yoga studio, and just start. Just start.
It's that fucking simple. There's not even 3 steps.
Just start.
There's fucking one step.
Just start.
There's one step.
Just start.
You're just like, all right, I've heard these podcasts and these people talking about just...
And most places offer a free class or a free week.
Fuck yeah.
Just so that there's no sense of obligation. It's like, just come and try and just see how you.
That's it. And then I feel, so once you start, I feel the next step would be like, because not everybody has this experience. I had the experience of my first class. You had the experience of your first class, right? Whoa, there's something there. But depending on the stress that we're carrying, depending on what life situations are, sometimes you can't switch off and get that fucking experience. Like not everybody's in not everybody's in the valley in fucking Peru, right?
Sure.
And so my next piece of advice is like, you got to give it at least 4 classes before you decide, because there's different styles and this sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
You got to give it at least 4 classes and go, right, now because sometimes people's nervous system can't unwind and they can't get that clarity just off one.
Exactly. And sometimes it's the teachers, like...
That's true. You got to land with the right teacher.
With the right teachers. Like some teachers, people love them. All right, great. But for me, your tone of voice, your teaching style, the style that you're teaching is just for my physiology.
Yep.
I
get the same.
And I say that to students as well. I'm like, maybe you don't like the intensity of my classes. That's totally fine.
Yes.
Don't let that be the reason why you don't practice.
Yeah, we are both intense teachers, right? Yeah.
There's many teachers, and find a teacher that can guide you to that place within yourself that you can soften, because they're that guide. So you have to allow them to enter into your nervous system. If there's that block and if they're not penetrating, then you're not going to have that release.
Correct.
So it takes a little bit to find, and it did for me when I was in Adelaide. It took a little bit to find my studio. So I found my studio, and then inside that studio there's 15 teachers.
Yes.
Who of those teachers are the ones for me?
And it's not to say that the ones that you didn't resonate are bad teachers.
Exactly.
Just
no.
They're not aligned.
They're just not exactly.
Exactly. They're not aligning for you. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So it's just bite the bullet and fucking book a class. Once you book a class, it's go to at least fucking 4 more, and then so that you can establish your place and your teacher, and then it is what your next step was, which is fucking 4 or 5 times a week, bang.
Exactly.
And how long did you practice for 4 or 5 times a week before you became a teacher?
I think it was probably about a year and a half, maybe year and a half. But I knew very on that I wanted to teach this. Like I wanted to learn this art.
See, we're a little different there.
Sure.
Like so it had profound effects for me. Very first class, like mine happened through work. And so I went and sought out the teacher that taught that, and then became a member of her studio. And yes, like that was like, shout out Amanda. That's Illuminate Yoga. It doesn't exist anymore. But shout out Amanda. It was 4 classes a week, and that was like 3 years for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Before you. Okay.
I didn't have that. I want to become a teacher when I went to do my training. I had that. I want to know more about this practice and why I'm having these effects. You already knew why you're having these effects because you've been involved with this shamanic work, etc. Getting into the spiritual marketplace, as you put it. I fucking love that. I'm going to use that. I'm keeping it. And so, but things switched for me immediately on training. From the very first weekend that I walked out of training, I'm like, how could I be so selfish to not teach this? I have the tools now to help somebody come out of the fucking bullshit like I was fucking in. And so, but you knew right from the start you were going to be a teacher.
Very early on that I wanted to learn the art of this and then share it.
Yeah, man.
And can I add that like I had my darkest hours in Adelaide. Actually, I would say like it was it was very challenging. I was on my own. I was isolated from
Yep.
my Sydney people.
Yep.
I just come. It was a very very dark and challenging time. And even I would say even the last 3 months has been, I've been almost in the same heaviness and going.
Interesting.
But can I say, Karl, that honestly, like coming here on Wednesdays and teaching, for me personally,
Mm.
this was for me actually, I feel it did for me more than I think it did. It was for me, like coming here to teach on Wednesdays, for me, this was like, I need to go and teach on Wednesdays. Like if I'm not in this space on Wednesday, if I wasn't here on Wednesdays, I don't know. I just like teaching for me.
It's
I
your
know-
sanctuary at the moment.
It's like
this place.
it just kept me like being a teacher role. It keeps you honest.
Mm.
The days that are leading up, I'm like sharpening. I'm making sure I'm switched on. I'm preparing myself mentally, spiritually. I know the day is coming.
Mm.
So it's really kept me charged and online. And then, of course, after you teach a class, there's a beautiful feeling that comes.
Oh fuck yeah.
It's very refreshing.
Yeah.
You're getting the same shavasana as the students, but in
Absolutely.
it's a different feel to it.
Yeah.
But when you're doing that all day Wednesday, it's like boom, 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 boom. I leave on Wednesdays and I'm like you'd think you'd be tired. I'm doing all classes, doing some privates. I'm leaving Wednesdays on a beautiful high, and that's leading into Thursday, and then by Friday it's wearing off. I'm like, Karl, give me some covers, man. Give me some covers, man. It's wearing off. No, so teaching for me.
Bro, thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that, my
and
man.
then having me in this space and like this community, like the conversations I've been having